Hi everyone, Deb Haaland here. I'm so happy that you will join me today. And I am super excited to be joined this morning by my good friend and colleague Hank Johnson. He'll be on in just a minute. In fact, I'm looking for him right now. He's going to join me in just a minute. Hank Johnson has been Sorry, I'm on my back porch and there's a plane overhead. Hank Johnson has been a champion of the demilitarization of police. He's been a champion of prison reform, of doing away with private prisons. He has been out there every step of the way, fighting for justice and equality and equity. And I'm so honored to serve with him, and I'm honored that he is one of my mentors. And recently, we've both been working on legislation to add to the Justice and Policing Act so that we can make sure we are moving our country forward. I'm keeping an eye on who's joining so I can have Hank join me. But I see Marisa Luisa, 846. Thanks for joining us. Marcy Sue, thanks for joining us from Oklahoma. That's amazing. Thank you so much. From the Oto, Missouri tribe. Alina Sewell, Deb for VP. Well, I don't know about that one, but I'm here to absolutely talk about justice and policing and making sure that we are moving our country forward. The last couple weeks, it seems like every time we turn around, there's just a terrible crisis that we have to deal with. The most recent one was a dad of a young girl who was shot in the back. And here we go. My colleague, Hank Johnson. I'm not the most tech savvy person. There he is. How are you?
I'm fine, Congresswoman Haaland. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Thanks so much. So on my screen, you look sideways, but I don't know if that's just mine or there we go. Awesome.
Okay. I was a little dyslexic today.
You know what? I'm learning more about technology than I ever wanted to since we've been on self-isolation. So that's the way it is.
Good to be with you this morning, Deb.
Thanks for joining me. And we're here today to talk about our legislation, your legislation and our legislation. So I'm so grateful to have you. Your long-standing work of demilitarizing the police, you're a champion for that, and you're a leader in our caucus for that. So how's everything in Georgia's 4th District right now?
Well, yeah, everything is kind of, we're again saddened by the unfortunate loss of life of another Black man at the hands of law enforcement in America. This time it took place in Atlanta on Friday night. A young 27-year-old, Rayshard Brooks, was shot in the back twice by a police officer as he was running away from being arrested for DUI, a misdemeanor. And while they were trying to handcuff him, there was a scuffle. He grabbed one of the officer's tasers, ran off with it, turned as he was running and fired the taser at the pursuing officer, and turned forward and kept running. And after a few feet, he was shot dead by a police officer who could not have been in fear of his life. He could not have been in fear of the fleeing person committing a felony because the person had not committed a felony. The person was not armed. And
And when they're running away from you, they're running away from life is not in grave danger.
yeah, so it's an unfortunate loss of life, and too often in the past we've seen these kinds of shootings be resolved as being justifiable homicide. And I think the public is fed up with it and is looking for change. And that's why your bill, the police receiving overly traumatizing equipment changes today, the Protect Act, your bill, which I am co-sponsoring with you, and thank you for asking me to co-sponsor that bill with you. That's why that bill is so important today. And I'm looking forward
Yes.
that it will pass at some point in Congress.
Yes, and I know that your bill, your original demilitarization with the program altogether, my bill would give police departments incentive to give back their military equipment in exchange for funding for the training that they need, for other programs that will help, really help our communities and not just throw people in jail. I feel like the police who shot Mr. Brooks needed training. He obviously didn't know how to handle a situation like that, and it's very unfortunate. So, so that's what we want. We want more of our, we want our streets to be safe. You know, Hank, I don't know what it's like to be a Black person walking in the streets of Atlanta at night. You must know what that feels like, and it just makes me weep when I think about folks not feeling safe on our own streets.
Well, you know, when I think of all of the Native American people who in centuries past were slow walked to what they call reservations and segregated from society in unequal facilities and forced to exist and live on those premises for decade after decade after decade. You know, the Native American population, in case people don't know it, you all are the original Black people, or shall I say the N-word of society. You're the original N-word of society, and you've been so we have most Americans have no idea, and I am among them, have no idea of life on the reservation, where many of your people are confined to as a result of the unjust policies that of this nation that have resulted in the kind of conditions that led to the killing of Mr. Brooks, as well as countless others, Black in America over the last 100 or so years. And so we have so much in common. We should really try to study. We have not, talking about reconciliation, we've not reconciled this nation's past insofar as Native Americans are concerned, and we've not done it insofar as Black Americans are concerned. And that really is part and parcel of the same package of stuff that America needs to get out of its system. And
right.
I'm happy that that you are in Congress. You are leading the way. You're the first Native American. This is 2020. You and Sharice David from Kansas, first Native Americans to ever serve in the United States Congress. It's such a long overdue, but you're here now. And Deb, you haven't wasted any time in terms of getting involved and letting people know where you're coming from and what your values are, and the quest of your people are concerned. So I stand united with you, and I'm proud to serve with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hank, I want you to talk about why we need to demilitarize police. Tell us in your own words. We kind of have an idea why, but you've been working on this issue for a really long time.
Yeah.
I'd like our audience to gain insight and history with you.
Well, I tell you, when you stop and think about it, we fought 2 wars with an all-volunteer army. We fought the Afghanistan war and the war in Iraq with volunteer forces. Those volunteers were, of course, enlisted personnel, but a lot of reservists and a lot of National Guard people fought and went overseas and were deployed not once but numerous times. And it's a fact that many of our sworn law enforcement officers are National Guards people, they are reservists, and they have been deployed repeatedly. When they come back from the battlefield, they are mentally scarred, post-traumatic stress. They have often lost the difference, the fine line between policing and being a member of the military. Military mindset is to go in, destroy, and occupy, and to that kind of mentality, whereas the law enforcement mentality is to protect and serve. And so when you have the mentality of the warrior, the warfighter, coming back to domestic law enforcement, and then you're also bringing back the weapons of war that they used while they fought overseas in the military, you're bringing that equipment back to the streets of America, and we're not providing any mental health assistance to our law enforcement officers. And so it's easy for that law enforcement mentality to be corrupted by the military mindset, and then they're all using the military equipment. And so it becomes a occupier mindset, us against them. And so it's important that we stop the flow of these military grade weapons from the war zones to the streets of that gravy train, if you will. And also, as your legislation calls for, to incentivize the returning of that equipment that has been procured by law enforcement agencies, often with no need for it and no training on how to use it. And then there's a requirement in the law that once you get it, you've got to put it into operation. You got to place it into operation within a year, or else you lose it. So that gives rise to the indiscriminate and wrongful and inappropriate use of this military grade weaponry on the streets. And we've seen it in Ferguson, and we've seen it by law enforcement agencies repeatedly since then. And so that's why we need to get these weapons off the street. And then we need to start working on changing the mindset of law enforcement officers back to more of a community policing standpoint, as opposed to a broken taillight, broken window mindset whenever they see a violation, particularly on the black side of town. Then somebody's got to get stopped, somebody's got to get a ticket. You know, it's just a heavy-handed, hard power type of policing that's going on in our neighborhoods, whereas in other neighborhoods, it's a more soft approach.
Right. Yes.
We've got in that.
Yes, and we've heard that about the pandemic. I read a piece a couple weeks ago that said, one side of town they're giving citations to black folks, and on the other side they're giving out masks. Black folks were not having masks, and the other side of town they're giving out masks. Give them out to everybody. Let's treat everyone equally. Hank, I was on Ali Velshi yesterday on MSNBC, and I appreciate you mentioning the essentially the genocide that our country started on with Native Americans, but and that did set the stage for how they would treat you know, the first slave ship when it came off, Black folks have been victims of violence, terrible, terrible violence for the past 400 years. And it is time for us to all to change our country, to change it for the better, to allow everybody to succeed here and to have a happy life and not just be victimized and worried that you're going to die today. That's something I know we're all working to do. And I think, and I'm proud to stand with you on the Justice and Policing Act also, and appreciate all the work that the Black Caucus has done to bring that forward. So thank you so much. I'm really happy that you joined me today. Hank, are there any last words that you'd like to impart on our audience today?
Well, yes, I would like to say that tolerance of other people who don't look like you is not enough. Tolerance is kind of like, oh, they got to be here, so I'll tolerate them. You know, that kind of thing, you know, it's time out for that. It's more of a situation of embracing, bringing others in, and loving us for who we are. Each person loving each other or loving the other for who they are, never losing fact of the fact that, or never losing sight of the fact that we're all people, regardless of what our skin color is or where we came from or what our sexual orientation is, or any other distinguishing factor. The fact is we're all human beings and we're all living here together, and we should do more than tolerate each other. We should actually embrace and love each other. And we need that more now than ever. And I think that the people who are out in the streets now protesting, it's all kinds of people. It's a kaleidoscope of people in America. People
Yes.
are coming together, and that's a good thing. Our society is changing. There are those who want it to remain as it has been, but we're not going back there. So come on, let's all walk together. Let's all move forward together and make our nation the kind of place that it is supposed to be, the kind of place that it has never been, and the kind of place that we can turn it into. We live in a great country, but we have a lot more work to do, and so that time is now for us to do it. And let's not take another 30 or 40 years to let it happen. Let's do it right now.
Yes, and Hank, that gives me a good segue into saying, reminding everyone, if you're out there protesting, please wear your masks.
Yes.
Please wear your masks. Please be safe. Wash your hands as soon as you get home. Change your clothes. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and I want you all to be safe. I don't want anybody getting sick. I want you to protest, but I don't want you to get sick. So social distance, wear your mask, wash your hands, change your clothes when you get home, and just make sure that you're doing what you need to. Hank, I'm so happy to have this time with you today. We'll have to do this again, okay?
Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. And you take care of yourself. Stay masked up.
Bye.
Remember the social distancing, hand washing.
Okay.
Don't touch your face with your hands, and answer the census. Still
Thank you. That absolutely. Okay, we'll see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.